They are, okay, so I'm just going to go back. So they are from an agency called Uniform Recruitment. I'm going to read a bit of background about David, well, the organization itself, which I found on LinkedIn. I'm just going to, everything's okay, just a second. Okay, I hope that sounds okay so far. So they run an organization called Uniform Recruitment. I did have my Dan. I was following you on LinkedIn today. I read your profile on LinkedIn, which I think we can find you there now. So I'm just going to talk about you briefly. So Uniform Education is a specialist recruiter. Okay, and that's what they do. And they have the team, as a team, they have over 30 years combined experience. So Dan and David are both directors. Dan, I believe, is the recruitment specialist and recruitment director. And I believe David is the schools director working with schools. And what they do is they help to place teachers, support staff, and international staff across schools in the country. They also provide consultative service to candidates and schools and have developed all these processes over years. Okay, so this is what they do. They have a shared vision, and what they intend to do is build lasting working relationship with schools and with candidates to improve pupil attainment. Okay, and the consultants that they have, so their team are specialists within education recruitment, and they're really quite good at picking exceptional talent. I've spoken to both of them. Well, I've spoken to Dan, and Dan talks about they've done recruitment in Australia, in South Africa. So I believe they're experts in international recruitment, which is why we want to work with them. And together between them, they have over about 30 years education recruitment experience. And they've seen firsthand the positive influence that, you know, when you have targeted recruitment, how that helps. So without further ado, I'm going to pass on to Dan to introduce himself further. And then I'm going to ask David to introduce himself. And then I'm going to ask you some questions. Is that okay? So Dan, over to you to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Fala. Hi, guys. Yeah, so my name's Dan Grace. I've worked for Uniform Education for the last almost 8 years. We set up Uniform in April 2015. And we used to work for one of the larger agencies prior to Uniform for 10 years. Our mindset was that we wanted to set up an agency that really focused on overseas candidates. So we've had huge success in bringing across Australians, New Zealanders, South Africans, Irish to the UK. However, since Brexit, we've really seen a slowdown in the people that are coming across the UK, and the demand for teachers is on the increase. But the amount of candidates that are coming across has really dipped since Brexit. So after speaking to Follow, we really would like to pursue this avenue with Nigeria. And we believe that with the new opening of the QTS rules, that there's definitely some, there's really a green light from the UK government to bring Nigerians here to the UK. So we're very confident that with the 600 schools that we work with across London and the home counties, that there's a real need for it. So that's what this meeting is about tonight. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you have and just put it out to the floor. I'll just pass you over to David.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Thanks, Fowler. Yes, my name's David Owen. Similar to Dan, I've been, we set Uniform up from day one about 8 years ago. Prior to that, I was with Dan at the other agency as well. And similar to what Dan says, really, I just want to echo kind of what he mentioned there. One of the reasons for setting Uniform up was with the mindset of improving, the children's education. That's at the forefront of our minds. My wife's a teacher, Dan's wife's a teacher, so we're heavily focused on education. And at the forefront of our minds is the children and making the best of their school life and giving them every opportunity possible in life. So with that comes the quality of teacher. So what we're really looking to do when we set Uniform up was really improve the caliber of candidate that comes from a recruitment agency. which comes hand in hand. We put a good teacher into a school. We're confident then that the child or the pupil will then gain a satisfactory education to what they deserve. So that's kind of where we're at the moment, and there's a huge demand for people like yourselves here in the UK. A lot of vacancies, and we work with a lot of partnership schools across the UK.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, David and Dan. That's really helpful. So I'm going to go to the first question. So if I'm a teacher registered with your agency, what kind of service or support can I expect to have from yourselves?
Sure. We were in a meeting only this morning prior to this, and we were just sort of mapping out how this would work. Now, we've got our third director who works for us, Laura Myers. Now, Laura takes a first-hand role in dealing with the Aussies, the Kiwis, the South Africans. So she would be the first port of call. So she would be almost a candidate handler. So, for example, you give us 3 or 4 names. Laura would be in contact with them, and she'd be their first port of call for any questions, working out how we get them across with their visas, etc., and then linking them up with the schools. And that's where Dave and I then come into play in terms of giving them interview advice, talking through the types of questions that they would be asked, and really just a step-by-step guide in how to interview here in the UK, because it's not just us putting opportunities in front of people, it's then guiding them through the interview process, which is a challenge in itself.
Yeah, so, I think what's happened since sort of COVID, it will definitely benefit you guys as well, because schools have had to become a bit more tech savvy with video interviewing. So it's not so much now where it was sort of 10 years ago, where a school were a bit unsure of Skype interviews and things like that. It's very much the norm now. We have UK teachers here that have first interviews via Zoom or Microsoft Teams. So it's definitely moved with the times. It will definitely benefit you guys now doing video interviews of schools.
For example, there are candidates that perhaps are in Essex, one of the home counties, and they're going for a job in Hertfordshire, which is the neighbouring home county, and they will have first Google Meets or first Zoom rather than sort of travelling across from Essex. So as David said there, the idea of having a Zoom call, whereas 5 years ago, prior to COVID, it was really unheard of unless it was an Australian. Now it's it's par for the course.
And I think that's really encouraging, isn't it? Because I remember when I first started looking for work, you had to go to the school physically and do this lesson observation and do this sample lesson and all of that. But can I just ask you, what does a typical interview now look like? So say it was going to be a Zoom interview, say, on Teams, what would that look like? If you just give us a snapshot.
Yeah, I mean, it does differ from school to school. I mean, some schools will almost ask, and especially with the Australians and the New Zealanders, I've heard where schools have asked the prospective candidate to do almost a lesson observation online. So, okay, this is the type of lesson we want you to teach. They may ask you to do sort of a 15 or 20-minute example of the type of lesson that you might teach. Then it will go to sort of interview stage, questioning. But there are some schools, believe it or not, that will just take people based upon the personality, right? So it just depends on the type of school. The academies, and you'll know this, Fola, the academies are a little bit more stringent in how they go through the interview process. Some of the standalone schools will be a little bit more flexible, and they might just take somebody on, look, we really need a maths teacher, we really need a science teacher. Let's see what they're like as a personality, and let's get them across to the UK, and then we can train them, we can get them up to speed. So the interview process isn't a uniformed, pardon the pun, it's not a uniformed approach. But in the main, I would say if we're dealing with an academy, they will ask for a 15 or 20-minute lesson observation, a mock lesson observation over Zoom. The standalone schools might be a little bit more flexible.
Yes, so sorry, thank you, Dan, actually. So someone's just sent me a question saying, what's the difference between a standalone school and academy? Sure. Do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good question. So I would say the split now in the UK, you've got these academy trusts You've got a huge academic trust, for example, called the Harris Federation. The Harris Federation have 67 schools dotted around London and the home counties, and they will have their own HR systems, their own finance systems. So they all come under the Harris umbrella. And then you might have the standalone schools that are just a school with a head teacher. They make their own decisions, and they've got more autonomy to do things their own way. So I would say now in the UK, especially since we've got a Tory government, it's leaning more towards the academy trust. It's about a 50-50 split at the moment.
I agree, because I know my school's become an academy, and before we were previously standalone school, and now we are like almost a part of a trust of 3, now 4 schools, and we can make decisions about when we have a school holiday, and school date, term time, school day, and a bit more flexibility, like you're talking about autonomy. Yes, so that's what that looks like. Someone's asking a question about what is the demand like? What kind of teachers are you looking for?
Oh,
I think I know what
Yeah.
it is, but if you want to say
Yeah,
something.
we kind of alluded to it in the intros there. The demand is huge at the moment. So obviously the core subjects here in the UK, English, maths, science, will always be in high demand. We know we work with, say, 20 secondary schools, for an example, in Hertfordshire. I would guarantee at this point, probably at least 60-70% of them are probably looking right now for September for a maths or science teacher, probably more. So the demand, the choice of school, the choice of location, you can be pretty flexible on that. Yeah, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Dan, but the demand is pretty big at the moment.
David and I have worked in this industry for getting on for 20 years, and I've never known a demand to be like this. It is our job. When we started our job, way back when, it was very much a case of having to go out and build relationships with schools. Now, what we have to do is build relationships with candidates. If we've got a flow of candidates, like this conversation we're having here, we know that the placements are there. So it really is a case now. It's not so much, what vacancies are out there. It's how many candidates that we have.
That's really useful to know. Thank you. What kind of salary do people should they expect for? So say I'm new to the country, but I've got about 5-6 years teaching experience. What is the average starting salary?
Yeah, so it just depends really in terms of when I look at the vast majority of placements that I've made, even if we bring an Australian across or a South African, if they've got 4 or 5 years experience, 9 times out of 10, the schools will understand that, and they'll take that into account. And they would normally put them on sort of pay scale 4 or 5 on the main teacher pay scale. If we're talking in London, somebody with 4 or 5 years experience would be getting on for north of 35,000 a year. Okay. If somebody has got, they've just recently qualified, the school would be more inclined to put them on main pay scale 1, which at the last time we looked in London is about 32,000.
It's about 32.
32,000. So in our opinion, the demand will certainly come from London, but also the home counties that surround London. If you look at a map of London, you've got the M25, and just on the outskirts of the M25, you've got the home counties such as Hertfordshire, Essex, and Buckinghamshire. Follow, you've got some experience in this. A lot of the demand will come from the home counties, because they will struggle to find candidates more so even than the schools in London. So the salaries will be slightly less outside of London, but the cost of living will of course go hand in hand with that. So it will cost you less to live in places like Hertfordshire and Buckinghamshire.
Yeah, and in my personal experience, when I came to the country on a working holiday, I didn't particularly want to live in Buckinghamshire, but I went to work there because that was where I could get a work permit. Because sometimes you just have to think about what your reality is. You're looking for work, that's where the job is, and you go there and just kind of suck it out and do a couple of years, and then you can move around. Well, that's what happened for me. I was going to ask you, Dan or David, if someone has a QTS, is that automatically you get a job, or what kind of things do you need to work on to help you prepare to get a job?
Yeah, I think QTS obviously is the main qualification that schools look for. Coincide with that, if you're a specialist in your subject area, science, maths with degree, etc., again, that's fine. If people are coming over, and apologies if this isn't the case, but if you're coming over without QTS, then we kind of alluded to it before you joined the call, that we do work with schools that offer a route into training as well, into teacher training. So if you've got a degree in physics or chemistry and you come over as an unqualified teacher, there are routes to teacher training that schools will provide now, especially within the academies. So we work very closely. We alluded to Harris Federation before. Harris will take graduates from us that want to become teachers, and they'll put them through their own teacher training courses over a period of time. But yeah, obviously, if you've got QTS, that will help massively.
Thank you. That's really good to know, because I kind of forgot about that. What would be the main challenges if you're a new person coming to the country? What would be, you say, the main challenges you may face? David, Dan?
Yeah, I think one of the main challenges is it's a completely new place, right? So if we take South African teachers as an example, one of the main challenges that they have is that when they initially arrive, they might struggle with classroom management, because the way that we manage our classrooms here might be completely different to how they manage classrooms in South Africa. So the subject knowledge might be up here, but in terms of how we manage classroom management might be completely different. So some of the teething problems are often arise from, the strategies that I adopt at home aren't necessarily how the ones that you adopt here in the UK. But I would always say, and we always say to all of our candidates, it would never be a case of, if a candidate arrives, they are just left to their own devices. We will always work with that candidate, give them positive feedback, give them some feedback that might not necessarily be positive, but might help them in the long run, because it's all about improving. Now, even when we bring a South African or an Australian, even an Irish candidate, for example, we often get the candidate calling us up saying, oh, I want to go home, this isn't working. We work with that candidate. We calm the situation down. We've got a lot of experience in working with candidates that have arrived here in the UK. We know the path that they tread, and it's just about calming the situation down, working with them, and just building that candidate's confidence. It's all about confidence, right? When somebody, if I was to arrive in Nigeria, South Africa, or Australia, I'd be scared, right? It'd be a completely new opportunity for me. And I'd like to think if roles were reversed, I'd have a team there that would be looking after me. So it would never be a case of, and I can give you my word on this, it would never be a case of person arrives, we put them in a job, we leave them. Our job is to look after that candidate from A to B and make sure that they're happy in the role that they're in.
Yes, and that's really good. Thank you. That's really good to know, because I think people feel anxious about moving or moving abroad. You kind of get a little bit anxious about that. Sure. Now, someone asked the question, Dan, David, if you want to, they said, do schools employ a teacher? Can they kind of provide visa sponsorship? I think you've already kind of alluded to that, but you may want to.
Yeah, I don't want to give people false expectations. I think it's really important that having these conversations, that we're very honest and transparent with people. Now, I'm not saying that schools won't offer work permits, but my experience has been that if you've got a candidate who requires a work permit, their chances of finding a job are a lot less than somebody who's perhaps coming across on a youth mobility visa. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but the chances do reduce quite a lot, because you have to imagine that schools have to apply for that work permit, and they will do everything in their power to find a candidate elsewhere before they go down that route. So I don't want to be negative in my answer, but I'm just trying to be as transparent as I possibly can be.
Yeah, and that's really good. Now, one of the things, so if anybody has a question about visa sponsorship, now, just to clarify here, that one of the things we're doing is Nigerian team will contact you about youth mobility scheme, other schemes that you can explore. And what Dan and I have talked about is it's easier to get a job when you're on ground. And that is exactly my experience. So I came to the UK on a working holiday. And then, you go to school, you show your personality, then it's easier to find work. And then they can sponsor you on a work permit. So we can talk about different options with you. But what we're saying is easier when you come in for the interview. That is the easiest thing. I don't know. David, is that how you feel as well?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. Nothing really more to add to that.
So that's our experience. We're going to say it's easier when you come in here in the UK to go for interview and show your personality. Also, most of us, I have an accent, is more difficult when you speak with an accent over the telephone or Zoom. The accent just kind of comes out stronger, I think. So it's easier when you come in person. Sorry, please mute your phone. Okay. Now,
guys, can I just add, guys? I mean, David and I have probably got, the last time I'm looking, we've got probably 600 candidates out working for us. Now, without giving you the exact number, I would say 50% of those candidates will have come from an African background, right? So you're right, Fola, in terms of most of those candidates are here on the ground and they've gone out for what we call trial days. So we'll send somebody in, and often how somebody interacts on a trial day will be completely different to how they might interact over the phone or over a Zoom, because they've got that sort of first-hand, they're meeting the head teacher, they're interacting with the pupils. So I would say our success rate goes through the roof once the person is here on the ground, because we can then send them off to various different schools for trial days, and we can actually pay you for those trial days as well.
Thank you, Dan. Someone's asked a question about, do you get paid less if you don't have QTS? So David mentioned that if I had a degree, say in physics, and some of them actually have teaching experience, but without the qualification, do I get paid less? That's the question.
Generally, yes. But we do have here in the UK an unqualified teacher pay scale. So it could be somebody with 10 years experience of teaching physics, but without the qualification may end up earning more than a newly qualified teacher that has QTS. So again, schools can be flexible with this, especially the academies, because the academies will have their own sort of pay scales in place. They'll have a bit more flexibility in what they can and can't pay people. But again, with the shortage and high demand of especially subject areas, schools will generally look to make it fair. So if someone comes over with 10 years experience of teaching physics, then you're not going to miss out on a huge salary, and then you will have the opportunity then to gain QTS once you're working in a school.
Which is the ultimate, I'm going to say, because if you come in a school without QTS, you just kind of limit the progression opportunities. So if you are somebody who has ambition to become a leader or something, you just have a cap. You can't do it without QTS. So if, like David said, you come in the UK, you haven't got QTS, I would say do it. Okay, do it when you can, because then that just opens other doors. But you can get a job, but it might be less salary, like David said, but it'll be just for a short time, which is what happened to me. And then you can then get your QTS and then move on. Okay, someone's asking again question about 15 years experience, exactly what we've said. It is possible. It's just easier when you are here in person. That's been my experience to get a job in the UK. Okay, so in terms of training, do you offer your candidates any training?
Yeah, so we mentioned Laura earlier. So she's our in-house trainer. So she's constantly updating our sort of training schedule for the year, in terms of classroom management, in terms of the up to date on the curriculum, in terms of the special educational needs side of things. So she would be the best person to liaise with on that front. I feel like the training side of things, it's very much a case of there is no training like being on the job. So the sooner we can get somebody into a school, the better, because a lot of the training happens on the job. So we could do all of the training in the world, in our boardroom, in our office, but effectively the quickest and easiest way for somebody to learn is by working. And our job is to put opportunities in front of people to go into the schools.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Someone's just asked a question about, do you get an automatic job offer? So say you came to UK to do a QTS with a PGCE, which is some of the things I'm advising people to do, Dan and David, because once they're here doing a course, you can send them to schools and they might get a job. They're asking, is the job offer automatic? I think I know the answer to that, but we can both,
Just in terms of that question, when you say is it automatic, are they meaning if they have a Zoom call, would the offer be over Zoom?
No, so they're saying, okay, so they've come to the UK on a student visa. They've come to do like a PGCE course that comes with QTS. So they're saying once they finish that course, do they just automatically get a job?
The honest answer is no. However, the probability of getting a job goes through the roof, right? So I'd like to say somebody with QTS, with a PGCE, with a great personality, they're almost guaranteed a job, right? That I think that is the fairest answer to that question.
I agree. I think that's just it. Nobody will say 100% you've got a job because you obviously have to interview, but most likely you will get a job.
I would add to that, Fola. The main thing we're looking for here in the UK, obviously we're looking for QTS, and we're looking for the qualifications, and we're looking for the subject areas that we struggle with. But a personality, coming across with a smile, coming across with a willingness to want to come in, a hard work ethic, all of them things don't change because you're coming from Nigeria, right? If I'm recruiting somebody for a place in my office, right, I'm looking for somebody with all of those attributes, right? With a smile, with a willingness to learn, with a work ethic. And if you can get that message across on a Zoom call, then you're almost guaranteed a job.
Absolutely. Thank you. Excellent. Someone's asking, is there an age limit to getting a job?
No,
not at all. I think obviously that's going to look at, when you look at visas and sponsorship and things, I don't know what sort of the requirements are for sort of a working holiday visa. That's something we'll have to have a look into, or follow if your team have a look at that. But in regards to securing a job, no, there's not an age limit.
Yeah, thank you. One of the things we mentioned, Dan, is that, and David, is that when we work with you as ESC working with you, you are going to have a web page for us on your website. Do you want to say something about that? How do people connect with you when they start working with us? Yeah, go ahead.
So our marketing team at the moment are putting together a landing page. Follow, obviously, we were waiting for your marketing side, which you kindly shared with me today. So that's in the pipeline. So there will be a landing page. Effectively, that will go, any communication will go direct to Laura and her team. Laura has Rianne, the compliance manager, and a team of 2 or 3 underneath her who will be dealing with any questions. But effectively, we're not a huge, massive company that's going to just, dilute the conversations we're having with people. David and I, although we're directors, we will take a first-hand approach to this. We will be there to answer questions as well. I think if you were dealing with some of the huge organisations that do what we do here in the UK, you would just be dealing with one of many. But I would like to think that if I get a question, you can contact me direct, you can contact David direct. We're here, right? We're dealing direct with the schools. We deal direct with our candidates. Obviously, we've got a team who work with us. But I think one of the key successes to Uniform has been that David and I have been so, we connect with people. And that's why we were so keen to have this meeting today, Fola.
Thank you. And okay, so a couple of questions. Thank you, Dan and David. One of the questions someone's asking about, how you're supposed to come to the UK without actually having a job. And if maybe you joined the meeting late, I've given myself as an example. I came to the UK without actually having a job. So there are visa routes that we can talk to you about, and the Nigerian team will take care of that. Okay, because that's not Dan's job. Dan's job, and David, is when you come here, they then take over how you get a job. So the Nigerian led will, help with getting that visas, giving guidance on what to apply for. Once you get here, they then take over that journey from there. So someone's asking, are you an agency that recruits for schools? David, what are you? I mean, you talked about it before, but do you want to mention that again?
Yeah, we are. So yeah, Uniform Education, we are a specialist education recruitment agency. So we work with over a few hundred partnership schools across predominantly London and the home counties. We provide schools high quality candidates, teachers like yourselves, into jobs. And we are sort of the middleman between yourself and the school. So we will ensure your journey is very smooth from when Follow and the Nigerian team hand you over to us. We'll ensure that we are then looking at the right school and the right area for you to live and work in.
And just to kind of chip in a bit. So one of the things I've spoken to Dan about is, and this is for all the candidates, so we're not going to be passing on everybody automatically to Dan and David because they're really looking for high quality candidates. And because I work in the school myself, I know that you don't only need a QTS, you need to have the right kind of tricks and how to answer questions, the personality, all of that. So we would do an initial screening. So all of these people come to us, we'll screen, and then we'll pass this over to Dan and David. That's how it's going to work. Now, someone's asked the question saying, are you looking for, no, so they're saying, what subjects do you mean by science? When you say science, what do you mean?
Yeah, so the three core areas of science here in the UK and probably similar to you guys. So we have physics, chemistry and biology are the main subject areas within science.
Perfect. It's the same that we have in Nigeria as well. So it's physics, chemistry, biology. And we are looking mainly for secondary school teachers because that's what the UK government has said. So if you go online, when we finish this meeting, go and check the QTS portal, the UK government's QTS portal. They're asking for secondary school trained, mainly teachers in sciences. So biology, physics, chemistry, and then maths. So someone's asked a question about English. Could they come and teach English? I don't know. I don't think so. Not at the moment. I don't know. Dan, any thoughts?
I would say not so much, if I'm being completely frank with you. I don't think so much in mainstream schools right now. Having said that, there's a huge need within the special educational needs setting. So if you've got English as a subject, if you've got QCS, we can certainly open doors within special educational needs. And what do I mean by that? There's a huge spectrum of special educational needs. So right from one side of the spectrum, you've got profound multiple learning difficulties. That might be pupils with disabilities. And at the other end of the spectrum, it would be more so the behaviour side. So kids with social and emotional challenges. So these would be for want of a better word, kids with behavioural challenges. There is a huge need in those schools as well. And I know for a fact they really struggle with English teachers. Right, so maybe not so much in mainstream, but I wouldn't close the door to English as a specialist subject.
Well, thank you for that, because I didn't even think about that. That is really, that's really, I didn't think about it. Like a PRU or something like that. That would be really
one of the areas, guys, that I would really think about, and it's not closing the door to mainstream, but I would say a huge demand for me and David comes from the special educational needs setting. So if we were struggling to find you a job in a mainstream school to start with, you come over, you work maybe a term, so you're getting paid, you're understanding, right, I'm here in London, I'm working, I'm getting paid, and then you could perhaps look to get into mainstream. You're here getting paid. That essentially is the main thing.
I agree, because I think sometimes just getting your foot through the door is really quite key.
Yeah.
There are some questions, lots of questions about someone who's into childhood education. So I suppose like early years. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, again, similar. I think there's probably more opportunities within secondary and SEN, the special schools, but we would not rule out somebody that's a qualified primary teacher.
I'll give you an example, Fola. I've got a lady called Tewu, who's currently working for me at a parallel learning trust school, which is a a school for kids with social and emotional challenges. So she arrived here from Ghana, and she's a primary teacher. She was struggling to find a role in a primary school. So she called me up. She'd worked for various agencies. I hate using the word desperate, but she was getting to desperate stages, and she was almost like, do I just give up teaching? She's now working for me at a social and emotional challenge school in South London, and the feedback from the head teacher is wonderful. She's doing a great job. She's over the moon. She's earning £1,000 a week, and that is a real success story, right? So it's not, David and I will never close the door to, oh, it's a primary teacher, oh, it's a English teacher. We just look at them as teachers, and what do we do with those people? And it's just about having conversations with different people within schools and just try to find a way in for those people.
Absolutely. I didn't think about that, because sometimes, we don't know these things, isn't it? This is your area. This is your expertise. You know these things.
Yeah.
Are you also looking for geography teachers in science, social sciences? Would you be interested? If at that point, is there a shortage? Is there a demand?
Look again, and I don't want to kind of keep echoing what I've said. Genuinely, there is just a real shortage here for teachers, right, across the board. I think it's our job to treat each person as an individual. So follow, when you say to us, right, I've got candidate X, this is their background, David and I will just treat each people as an individual, and then we'll have a discussion with that person and just work out what's the best way for them. We essentially, what I'm saying is, we don't want to close the door to anyone, right? If they've got the personality and they've got the will to come across, and they've got the will to come across and learn, we'll work with them. Okay,
thank you. Someone's asked a question about the 4-year rule for people who are non-qualified teachers. And as far as I'm aware, this person asking this question, many years ago, you could only teach for up to 4 years without your QTS, and then you had to get it. But I think Dan mentioned earlier on, things are quite flexible with an academy. If you work in an academy, it's your choice if you decide to do the QTS. I don't know. Any other thoughts, Dan, do you think? Or David?
Yeah, no, I think so. Yeah, and I think if you come over, without QTS, and you're a good candidate, you fit in really well with the school, there is no reason why a school wouldn't give you QTS, and it's only for your added benefit then to take it. It's not super expensive for the school to put you through QTS, and they'd be crazy not to be honest. They're not going to turn away a high caliber candidate at the end of 4 years and say, off you go. 99% of the time they will offer a route to QTS for you.
We've recently had a candidate called Melanie who came across from Durban, South Africa. She didn't have QTS. She's a primary teacher. She had 6 years in South Africa. She had a Zoom interview with a particular primary school in North London in Finchley, and she's now been put through her QTS, and she's now gone on to the main teacher pay scale. So there's another success story of somebody who's come across who didn't kind of tick all the boxes, but she ticked the main ones, which were she had a willingness to learn, wanted to come across, wanted to do it, and now she's working there as a fully fledged member of staff.
Thank you. And what I was also going to say, Dan, is that for all our candidates here, we also almost have like a credibility thing at stake. So Dan and David are directors, they run a company. We also run a company in Nigeria. What we want to do is make sure we're putting the best people forward, but also when you start working in the school, that you do your utmost best, because what will happen is, even if a visa is given to you, a work permit, it can be cancelled, it can be withdrawn if you're not pulling your weight, you're not doing the right thing. So what normally happens is you get a 2-year permit, say, God forbid anything happens, they can notify the embassy that you've lost your job. And so we still got to do the right things, make sure things keep working. I don't know, Dan, David, any thoughts on working in a school, how to do things correctly?
There's no great science to work, right? We always say you get in on time, you're not the first to leave, you wear smart clothes, you smile at the right people, you have a good handshake, right? and you conduct yourself in a professional manner. Now, all of them things sound like simple, simple ticks. However, not everyone does it. And David and I are forever having to let people go, or head teachers are calling up and saying, John, the English teacher, we've had to let him go because guess what? He was late 3 times this week, or he was the first one we've seen him getting in his car at 3:15 when we have a meeting at 3:30 till 4 o'clock. All of this stuff sounds obvious, but not everyone does the obvious, right? So we're not asking for people to come across and be, amazing. They just have to do the things that are asked of them. So that would be my my main point on that.
And you know what, Dan, that's a really good example, because in Nigeria, we have this joke about Nigerian time. So if they say something starts at 7 o'clock, we'll just rock off after 7 because it's our Nigerian time. And that's true. And I have seen many Black people at work from Nigerian background rock up work late, because it can be a bad culture because people just don't start things on time. So you just assume they wouldn't. And so I've had to unlearn that culture, because I know in UK, if you say 7 o'clock, it means 7 o'clock. And actually there's an expectation that you are starting at 7, so you arrive even before 7. So it's that, something I had to learn, because it's not something I did before. But anyway, yeah, I thought I'd tell you about that.
And follow on that note, head teachers, they're looking for these things, right? They're looking for who's come in last, who came in first, who was the first one to run out the door at the end of the day, right? And we often get candidates, they'll call us up and say, oh, I didn't think anyone would notice. The head teachers will notice, and you'll be the first one gone when it comes to, the budgets have been slashed or whatever. You need to make sure that you're not that person.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You notice who's coming in late, and the person who goes the extra mile. They're the people who can get a job. So even when you get your 2-year work permit, say, you still need to be extended. So these are the things you need to carry on doing when you're here. I think there's been a question around, 1 second, integrated science. I think we've talked about science. We've talked about English. Somebody's asking about psychology. Any thoughts about that? And I think we've talked about it. We've said all of these things, no doors are shut. If you've been listening to what Dan and David have said, saying, you come here first, we just need to come through the doors, okay?
All doors are open.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just come in, the possibilities are endless. You might have to start at the special school, you might have to go to a PRU, but they will help find work. And I think that's what we've heard over and over again.
If this is going to work, Fola, if this is going to work, it's a partnership between you guys there in Nigeria, us here in UK. We need to have open conversations. And it really is just a case of, let's not close any doors. It's just about having conversations. So, I'm sure once the candidates start filtering through, we will have individual conversations with each person, and we will just feedback to you, Fola, and just take it from there.
So thank you. Just to reiterate what Dan said. So the process will be this. Those of you who are registered to work with us at ESC, we're going to start shortlisting people. Our aim is to get some people to UK teaching in September. That is what Dan and we've talked about. And so we're looking for really high caliber teachers who will be here to teach in September. So this is a really good time to start looking for work. That's what we intend to do. So what we're going to do is start contacting people and then pass them on to Dan. And then Laura, I believe, David, your team will take over from there and start organizing this conversation based on each person. We have over 50 people in this meeting now. It's difficult to actually talk about each person's circumstance. So when we shortlist people, we pass them on, they would then go, Dan's team and David's team, they would take over from there. Some people are asking for schools who want Catholic. It doesn't matter. When we get to that point, we will talk to you as a candidate and then find out what you want to do and then work with you based on that. Dan, do you want to say anything about Catholic schools, David?
Yeah, I mean, one of my biggest successes in my early career in education recruitment was I'm Catholic myself, from Irish heritage, and one of my biggest successes was going out and meeting with Catholic head teachers, and I've got quite a few contacts now that I still work with. So to answer your question, if you have candidates that will only work in Catholic schools, I'll be more than happy to help those people. But one thing I would say, don't close the door to, just working in Catholic schools. I feel like you would be limiting your access to a lot of wonderful schools here in the UK.
David, you were going to say something. I agree, David?
Yeah, and vice versa as well. Catholic schools don't just recruit Catholics. So as long as you're sort of respecting the religion and their processes during the day, then that's fine. But, you don't have to be a Catholic to work in a Catholic school.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. And somebody out talking about pastoral care. So in England, when we talk about pastoral care, we literally just mean somebody who is working like a head of year, literally just a nurturing role. So it's not being like a pastor, like in a church, or it just means you're offering a different kind of support for that child. You're looking at their well-being, not necessarily looking at just teaching them a lesson, if that makes sense, when they're talking about pastoral role. I think that's most of the questions answered. We're going to ask you to please put your email address in there in the chat box. We already have your details. Some of you, Dan and David, just to clarify, some people are in different stages of their QTS applications. Yeah. So most people submitted on the 1st of February. Some of our candidates are still waiting for it to come through. So once it starts coming through, then we'll start passing them on to you, because I think that's the easiest way to go about it. But I think you've been really helpful today, just answering questions, and I'm really grateful. David and Dan, thank you for taking the time to join us. It's been absolutely amazing just listening to you, just speaking honestly, not hiding anything, just saying it as it is. Thank you so much. Any final questions, guys, please? Someone's saying, if you're a school principal, would there be a job for you? Like a senior leader.
Again, on that kind of just being completely truthful, I would say that to expect a job here in the UK to go in straight into senior leadership, it's highly unlikely. However, on that note, if you've got a background as a senior leader, you come across, show what you're about as a teacher, show that you do all the right things, and absolutely the next job that comes up once you're there here in the country, you can then apply for the next senior leadership role that comes up.
Absolutely, I agree, because I think it's just difficult when you're in a new place, it's like I go from England and go and work in South Africa or New Zealand or whatever. It's quite difficult to just go straight to senior leadership, isn't it? I need to learn the ropes, the culture of that country. David, you were going to say something. Yeah, go on.
No, just echoing that, Follow. Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah, it is a different culture, different way of life, different schools, different curriculums, maybe. So yeah, you're spot on there. I think, the right way to do it would be like Dan said, foot in the door and then progress from there.
Absolutely. Yeah, so foot in the door, we're not saying it's not possible. A couple of years experience. And I think if someone's a leader, it just shows when whatever job they're doing, it just shows, isn't it? They're more committed, they're going extra mile, and then it's easier to just take on those additional responsibilities. So give yourself time to learn in the new system is what I would say.
Putting yourself under too much pressure.
Absolutely.
Pressure to come straight over.
Yeah, thank you so much. Exactly. So from the Nigerian team will be in touch with you for visa options. So like I said, I'm a typical example. I came here on a working holiday. I got a 2-year visa, working holiday, got in touch with the recruitment agency, and they helped me get work. And then the school did my work permit from there. But I had to do my own thing. I had training done. I was working hard and trying because I wanted it. I don't want to use the word desperate, but I needed that job. So I made that kind of obvious. Okay, so that's my bit on that. But thank you so much, guys. We're going to let you go off in a minute. I don't know if anyone wants to say, please, round of applause for David and Dan. If you guys show me your clap of hands. Thank you, guys. You've been really, you should come the hands clapping. Thank you so much. You've been excellent. Thank you so much. Yeah, and we're going to let you go. Thank you so much. Have a lovely evening, David. And Dan.
You as well.
Thank you, Follow. We'll catch up soon.
Yeah,
take care.
God bless. Yeah, bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you. Bye. And I'm just going to thank you all for attending this meeting. The webinar is going to close. Thank you so much. Please drop your email address. We will be in touch. Thank you for taking the time. God bless you all. Good night. Have a lovely evening.
Hey, good night.
Good evening. Good night. Have a lovely evening. Thank you so much.
Good night and have a lovely night.
Oh, and you too. Thank you for joining us.
Good night.
Thank you. Hope it was useful. Thank you so much. Good night. Thank you. Thank you. Good night, Pat. Thank you, Taiwo. Thank you, everybody. Hope it's been useful. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good night. Good night. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you so much, sir. Hope you was
Please
useful.
kindly make the summary of the webinar available.
We will try. Thank you. We'll
so
try.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so much.
you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Please, can I have your address in Lagos?
Yes, I'm going to ask a member of the team to post it. Please, Dr. Yakome, do you want to post our address, Lagos address? Thank you for getting in touch. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night. We're going to post our address to you so that you can see it. But I believe it's EAC.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So much.
It's coming up. Please bear with us. We're just going to have the address coming up in a minute. Oh, yeah. So the email address is there's teachuk@eac.edu.ng, or you can WhatsApp us. And we are here to kind of just take all your questions, all your inquiries. Would love to work with you. All right. We want to see many of you here in UK in September when you come here. All right.
I would like to ask a question. What of somebody that is already in the UK?
Okay, so if the person is already in the UK, do you want to just send us an email? Because I don't want to have a public discussion about something that's personal.
Okay.
You see what I mean? But there are opportunities, like we said. So Dan is already in the UK. We are here. I live in the UK. I work in the UK. I'm an assistant head in the UK. So we can have these conversations quite quickly. Okay. All right.
Can you please, because I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, go on.
But I'm not seeing the address.
Okay, the address is there on the group chat. So if you look in the group chat, it's an email to Teach UK. The email is there.
Okay.
Yes, please email. And if you're in the UK, that's even better. What subjects, if I may ask?
I teach maths. I did. But I did teacher education back in Nigeria.
Okay, I want you like to contact me today or tomorrow, please.
Let me get my biro. Unfortunately,
I want you today or tomorrow, please. Okay, we can help find work immediately, please. Okay. Thank you so much.
Nice meeting all of you.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you. Nice to meet you. Thank you so much.
Sorry,
Yeah,
that phone number is not yours. It's for the people that are working for you in Nigeria. So how do we contact you directly? Or is it only through your email?
Yes, so the email comes straight to me. So we have two directors. One person is based in the US. Actually, that WhatsApp is picked up in the US as well. So we have access. You know WhatsApp, how it is. It's a number registered in Nigeria, but we pick up even when we're abroad. Oh, yeah. I can answer questions from anywhere I am. It's WhatsApp, isn't it? It's fine. It's not just for the team. Yeah, and the email, again, I get straight on my phone and I will contact you because we really I want to speak to you soon, please. Okay?
I would love to speak to you too.
Okay, so please contact us.
Do have a restful night.
And you too. God bless you. Thank you for taking the time.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to be logging off now. So to the number, yes, please. The number, WhatsApp us, please. If you're in the UK or not even in the UK, doesn't matter. Get in touch with us. We want to support people in this journey. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
So, thank you so much. It's now 7 o'clock. We are signing out. Take care. God bless you all. Good night. Good night, everybody. Bye. It's okay.
Okay, it has finished. How do I stop it?